Welcome to PJ Knits. My name's Penny and I live in Central Illinois, and this is my YouTube channel to talk about knitting. In Central Illinois today, it is October 26th. It is a Monday. It's 36 degrees. We had some snow flurries mixed with rain this morning, and now it's just cloudy and damp. So I wanted to pop on and talk to you a little bit today about Socktober, which is ending at the end of this week, but that doesn't mean we can't keep knitting socks. But I after a while, I looked and I thought I have a lot of sock stuff I wanted to talk to you about, and we've been talking about it on the Ravelry group, so you can join in the conversation there. But I just wanted to talk a few things about socks and Socktober and what I'm doing and how I came to knit socks. I have to admit I don't knit as many socks as I used to. My friend Norma, who passed away some time ago, every year for her birthday and for Hanukkah, she received socks, and that's where I did most of my sock knitting. I did some for myself as well, but she did get 2 a year, so that that is where I generally did all of my sock knitting. But I have a few socks in my wardrobe to wear, and now that I'm retired, I can wear them around the house, and I find that I might want some more. So that's kind of my sock knitting history. And I want to talk to you just a little bit about needles to start with today and where I started. In the beginning of my sock knitting, I was using bamboo. This is where I started out. Then something came out with what's called dry spun, and so I picked these up. But they're very flexible and weren't very pointy, and so I kind of put those aside. And then Knit Picks came out with their harmonies, and I bought a whole set of these. And so I used them for quite a while until Susan B. Anderson started talking about how she makes her socks and how she loved the signature ones. And so I bought several sets of these. And this is what I'm using now. But PSA, these are stiletto points, and they're very pointy. So if you're like me, as you're knitting along, sometimes, you know, you can puncture you can puncture a finger on them. But I do use these all the time, and I am basically a double pointer. I tried Magic Loop, and I think maybe with a little bit of practice, I could get used to that. But it's not something I'm going to switch over to right away, just because I don't want to. So that is my my transgression into needles, or it's not even transgression. Anyway, that's where my journey of double points was from. I also had a small, another one that I really like to use as well, and this is the Carbones, and these are the black ones with the tips on the end, and I really like these too. They're sharp, and so I do have socks that I like knitting on these as well. Then I just find it's a nice smooth knitting for me on that. So I just wanted to touch on those knitting needles that I have been using. Now, the next thing I want to talk to you about is needle holders. I came across some time ago at knitting camp these holders, which I love, that are made. And for people, specifically people who use double points. And the thing I like about them is it has just two caps on them. And I have a source. I think the sources are still out there. I will link them in the show notes on the Ravelry group for this episode. But it just has a little stretchy thing here with end caps. And for us double point these double point needle knitters, they come in real handy, because then you just pop them on there, and then they're secure, which I really like those, and I use those quite often. The other thing I also use, I have several different ones from different people, but this one came from Molly Klein Design, and I like this as well for some of them because it has the snaps on it, and you just pop your sock knitting into this, snap it down, and then it is secure. So I like these as well. These are wonderful. I have several different people. This particular one came from Molly Klein and matches a bag that I have for my sock knitting, for my Christmas knitting. So anyway, I wanted to talk about those couple of needle holders that are really good for us, that use double points. And I'm sure you could use those, perhaps the Molly Klein one, for circular knitting needles as well. Now, the other thing is, you all know I love bags, and so I have several bags that I want to tell you about that I have accumulated specifically for my sock knitting. And this one here that I bought some time ago is stitched by Jessa Lou, and I thought it was very appropriate. It has sock monkeys on it, and that is holding a sock right now. So I love those to have kind of sort of like a theme. And then I've talked about this before. This is my bag that Norma made me for my socks when I was knitting for her. And she has since passed away, but it has those socks on. So I readily know that my socks are always in this bag and in the sock monkey bag. So for those of you keeping track, that's 2 pairs of socks in progress, and not to have more, less is more. In my bag that my roomie gave me, Debbie, from Yarn Monster, this also carries my sock, and I have another sock in there as well. And I like this one because my accessories can go in it, and then my pattern, and then the yarn that I'm working on. So I have 3 sock bags here that I'm using specifically for my socks, for my sock knitting right now. First time socks. I went, because I said I had been knitting so many for Norma. My first foray into sock knitting was actually many years ago when I went up to Chicago to a shop to see Carol Anderson, and she talked about knitting socks and talked about how nice it would be for a brand new sock knitter to start on something a little bit more substantial than fingering weight and small needles. And so I picked up her Wisconsin Winter Socks books. And so my first set of socks that I knitted were from that book, and out of it was a worsted weight wool. At the time, I think I probably bought it at Hobby Lobby. It was a Canadiana. I think it wasn't Canadiana. I can't even remember what it was, but very much a boot sock, very, very warm. And so this was my very first sock that I knit, and I knitted out of that Wisconsin Winter Socks. Then I graduated. I thought, well, I want to go on to a little bit finer yarn. And at the time, the only yarns that our local yarn shop really was carrying was Regia. And so I found, also at that same trip when I went up to Chicago, I bought this book. It was called Patton's Classics in Croy, and it had socks. And my very first sock knitting in finger weight came out of this book. Actually, my first 2 finger weight ones came out of this book, and I've been using a variation of it ever since. And since, again, our yarn shop was only carrying at the time really Regia, I jumped into the Regia, and so this would have been my second official pair of socks for myself. And when I got done, this was quite big, and as you can see, not being the perfect sock knitter at the time, it was a little off, but I left it, and still is a nice warm sock. So then my next foray into knitting Regia was, and this was called the Clown colorway, and also from that book. And I got a little bit better, and I wear these all the time. And as you can see, I had not mastered the getting away of that ladder that runs there, but I still love them. And this is a pattern that I have adapted. This is one I used from this book, and I've used it forever for my knitting of socks since then. And for all of Norma, I had developed her a 68 stitch pattern. And so I have that pattern that I knit all the time from her. But these all, and still to this day, come from this particular book way back when. So I thought it was just fun to just give you a little history of my sock knitting. Now I'm using a variation of that that particular one, and I'm doing a 64 stitch pattern. And right now for Socktober, I'm working on a sock from my Shirley Bryant yarn. This is the Fade sock, and it's Shark Bait Ooh Ha Ha. And I am down to the foot. I'm working on the foot, and you can see from this one, it's a gradient sock yarn, but takes it a little bit to get to that. And I have a size 7.5, 8 foot, so this will be interesting to see how this all develops, and if I'll get all the way down to the yellow as it. And then the second skein is ready to be skeined up to knit. So I'm working along on that, and I'm trying to work every morning on my sock now so that I can get at least one sock done by the end of the week for Socktober. I am also working on, right now, a pattern that I started knitting a few socks on. In addition to that was the Smooth Operator sock by Susan B. Anderson. And I have one of those on the needles for Christmas this year, Christmas next year, but I don't think that's going to happen this year because I have so many other things that I want to knit on. But anyway, in addition to that, I do like the Smooth Operator sock by Susan B. Anderson, and I have knit quite a few of those. The difference being on the one that I've been knitting, it has about a 6-inch cuff, and it's all in rib. On hers, it's a smaller rib, and then a longer all-in knitting in the round. It's all in stockinette after that. So I have used hers, and that she had two back in the patterns. Originally, she had on her website, it's called How I Make My Socks, and it was before the Smooth Operator sock pattern. And so I have made them both ways. I've actually used my pattern from the Regia book, and then used some of her thoughts originally on this green sock, because that particular one is going to be for a man, and so I adapted my pattern for a larger man on that. So she also then has the Smooth Operator, which has the afterthought heel, and I've made some of those as well, and that is a pay-for pattern. And I've used those for me. It's not my most favorite sock, just because I really like the rib. I like the rib, and I think you could easily do that as well. Just do a rib down, and so maybe in the new year I'll try that. But right now I'm knitting a lot on my old Regia pattern because I really do like that. So now will I get them all done? I don't know. I have grand plans, as a lot of people do. Okay, accessories. Oh, I wanted to talk to you about my accessories that are in my knitting bag that I try to carry in all of my sock bags. Let's talk about that. In this particular one, I'm going to talk to you about these fold-up scissors, or some kind of scissors are always in my sock bag. I have a hard ruler because I like to measure and this particular one's an old one from work, a hard ruler so that I can measure when it's time to switch to something else in my knitting. In a needle holder of some sort, I have a very fine tapestry needle so that I can Kitchener my toes up if I want to, or if I want to tuck in the ends of my yarn. And so I always have one of those in all of my bags, and which has come in handy when I was at work and I needed a quick fix on something like that. Then I also have, this particular one, I bought a little macaron, and I always carry in it some coilless pins to mark stitches, or if I drop a stitch, I can pull it up. So I always have those in my macaron. And then this handy tool, which is a dentist tool, which I have several of, and I bought these originally. I think you can get them from Amazon. And it has a small little crochet hook on the end, and then a pointy stick on the other, if you're not careful. And I really like that so that you can lift up a stitch if you need to do that. And on this one to catch those errant stitches that may have fallen down. So I love to do that. So those are kind of my accessories, along with, in this case, like I said, my little needle holder. Wouldn't be without that. Keeps those stitches on. And then, of course, I have my little, my pattern that I've been using forever. I have it on note cards in there. So I've got that with my current pattern on it, or a current pattern if that's the case. So, okay, other fun notions, not necessarily in my bag, but sock blockers. I purchased these at Stitches Midwest sometimes ago, and they in the small size, I believe, so that I can, if nothing else, for podcasting, they come in really handy. Or if you're putting it on Ravelry so that they kind of sit up. I just like that. I bought the little sheep one. And then I ordered these from Espace Tricot a couple of years ago, the wire ones. This is a little bit larger for that larger foot. And I initially do block my socks after I've knit them up before showing those as well. So I bought both of these, and the nice thing is both of these hang upstairs on nails in the yarn room. So I thought those were kind of fun little gadgets to show you. And then something that I've not used as much, but is very handy because it doesn't fit in my one bag, is the sock ruler. And I purchased this at our local yarn shop, Fiber Universe. And it has instructions on how to measure for it, which is very handy if I put it in one of my other sock bags. And so I've got that. So I thought that was a super, super cool notion, that if you can fit it into your bag, is fun to use. So, okay. And last but not least on this foray into Socktober, let's talk sock tubes. Last year, year and a half ago, my friend Bindu and Annette did some sock tubes for me, and what I did is I took them and I made them into scarves for some people at work. Remember that scarf project and the cowl project I was on. And so what I did then is on the ends of them, I created I did the ribbing, and it became just a scarf. Well, then this is one that was left that I kept out. And so I left that on, and what I'm going to do is take this sock tube and make it into a sock for myself. Long socks. Won't that be fun? So this was the last that I had left over from that, and because I have a lot of sock yarn, and I'm a glutton for punishment, I found a resource out online. It's called Knit Knot Studios, and I sent a bunch of my sock yarn and a bunch of Debbie's sock yarn down to be made into tubes. About $15, $16, and then some shipping. So I have more than this, but she cranked some tubes for me. These are 64. And so these are going to I think they're going to be for me, more than likely. And what I did is I had her, it's not in here, but I also had her leave me 20 or 30 yards. You could opt for that option, so that I can make the heels and toes out of the same yarn if I wanted to. And so I had her do that option for me, but I had her do several tubes. And so those are going to become socks. I really thought some of these might be socks for the kids as well, an easy way to do a Christmas present. But again, this was from Knit Knot Studios, and you can find her shop on Etsy, and I was very happy with her workmanship. And a couple of weeks I had them back. It was very quick, so you have plenty of time. And the nice thing is, on her Etsy shop, she tells you if you order this on this date and you ship this date, then you can expect to have them back between this date, which I thought was a super, super nice thing to put out on the website. And she's very fun to work with. I made a little error, and she was like, is that really is that me or is that you? And super, super nice. So I can't say much more about that, but wanted to talk to you about that. And then finally, I just have a couple of other things. Books. I have I don't have a lot of sock books, but I do have a few. And one I wanted to call your attention to was Ann Budd's Knitting Socks. This book is super neat, has a lot of different patterns that my friend Linda gave it back to me in 2007 for my 50th birthday. Y'all can do the math. But it has a lot of different sock patterns in it. Talks about decreasing the gusset stitches, gives you instructional. And the thing that I love was way to knit socks in the round. And what I did is I actually looked at this one on one long circular needle yesterday when I was playing around with maybe trying to do magic loop, in conjunction with a super tutorial that Crazy Sock Lady has on YouTube. And very, very informative, both this in the written and then having somebody show me how to do it. And I might go back to that, but just not right today. But with a little practice, I may do that. I didn't get beyond doing it in the tube. I don't know how you handle the gussets and the toes and all that with one long needle. So maybe in the new year, certainly not before, but I'm open to that, more open to it than I was, say, 6 months ago. But anyway, this is a lovely book. It has some great patterns in it. Talks about stitch repeats if you want to switch it up, like in my case, if I wanted to take my 64 stitch pattern that I'm doing, and talks about rib patterns, gives you stripes, and gives you varying sizes on it. This one has 6.5 to size 9 3/4. Talks about those magic stripes, wide narrow stripes, which I really like this, which is similar to what I have done. Just a super, super cool book. And then she also does patterns for 5 stitches per inch, 7 stitches per inch in her pattern as well. So just wanted to call your attention to this Knitting Socks by Ann Budd, Getting Started. So if you're trying to become a sock knitter, or if you just want more information on socks or different ways to go. And then last 2 things, mail call. I received in the mail last week from Molly Klein Designs, Sweet Tea Yarns, her It's the Great Pumpkin Charlie Brown colorways. And you can see, aren't those cool? And I don't have a clue as to what I'm going to do with them, but she had me at It's a Great Pumpkin Charlie Brown. She knows me well. Molly knows me well. And it's I Got a Rock, Pumpkin Patch, Tricks and Treats, Linus and Sally, Halloween Party, and Red Baron. And there are 90 yards each. So I'm not sure. I'm open to suggestions as what to do with this. I don't know what to do with it, but we'll sock weight yarn, and I'll be thinking about that. But I wanted to share that because, after all, it's Socktober, and the cool thing about October is usually the Charlie Brown special, which unfortunately nobody's carrying but Apple. And yes, I'm super sad about that and a little bit torqued. Come on, people, put it back on network television so we all can watch it rather than having to do it just on Apple. And I'm an Apple person, but I'm torqued. Just saying. From my mouth to their ears. And then finally, because I wanted to show a finished object with you, I'm just going to touch bases one more time with some dishcloths that I finished for the Comforting Crafts knit along that we're doing between now and the end of the year for Brittany. And so I hope that if you are doing some dishcloths, that you will contact either Brittany or me to get them to me so that we can get them to her by the end of the year. There is a thread in the Ravelry group, and we are going to have a contest. I have the packet of Coco Knits accessories that will go out to the winner on that particular knit along that we're doing. But I had 2 that I wanted to show you before I put them into the my gift box. And I finished those up a couple weeks ago, but wanted to show those to you. Have a little finished object, not sock related, but anyway, something I wanted to show you. So that is all that I have for you for this episode for Socktober. I hope you're knitting socks along with other things. And next time, I'm not sure what we're going to talk about next time. I have an idea about Christmas knitting my Christmas knitting to share with you. That may be next time because it'll be into November and we will be full thinking about that, or it may be again sweaters. Haven't decided. I have both episodes kind of outlined out. So I'm super, super fun knitting coming along this fall after Halloween. So until next time, I hope you stay safe and well and knit on. Bye.